Alrighty, we're not doing an intro. We're just going right into it. We are legit just going right into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Realest Podcast, episode 82. The banner, of course, is right behind me as always. I don't think my autofocus. There we go. It was on my face. Nationers, great to see you guys in here. I hope that you guys are doing well. Hopefully you guys have had a lovely week. If you guys live in America, it has been a very unrestly week. I will say there's been a lot of things going on. I'm sure we all could use a break. And one of the main things this podcast I hope can provide is somewhat of a break. Every Sunday, you guys tune in, you guys watch, and I hope that you guys enjoy. I hope that you guys get to hear the little itsy bitsy things that are going on that I find important, things that I'm enjoying, things that's going on in my life, and most importantly, just how my week was going. And when I kind of got into the scripting mode, and I knew as things were transpiring throughout this week, I was like, man, this is something I could, talk about and share my thoughts on and shed some light on where things are at and things that maybe I have seen and kind of digested. And there's another side of it where I'm like, damn, like, do I even talk about this? Like, do I just talk about the Apple event and like life moves on? There was a lot of conflict going on within myself. I don't even know what to title this episode. As of recording, I still have no idea what to title it. I've decided that I do kind of want to talk about things that have gone on, things that I've seen. I always feel that no matter if my opinion is explicitly stated, there is at least some nuance and there is at least some things that I find important to share, and at least how I digest things, not just from, me being Jared, but just from an outside perspective of just seeing this all happen. I think it's kind of important to get perspective in such a world that we do live in, especially here in America, because I said it before, I think America is probably one of my favorite reality TV shows. And there's always something new going on every day. There's always something new in politics. There's always something new going on in entertainment. We live in such a news headline-worthy world here in America. I don't know what it exactly is like in other countries, but what I can talk about is my perspectives on things, and that's kind of what I wanted to do today. In recent light of things that have gone on with Charlie Kirk's assassination, the things that have gone on in a high school in Colorado, there has been a lot of unrest, especially in the political hemisphere, the sphere that the bubble that politics do live in, whether that does verge and converge a lot with your daily life, whether that is something that you kind of only care about every 4 years. Whatever and however you are on that spectrum, even to the point that politics can mean really nothing in your life. Wherever you land on that dartboard, or wherever you land on that slider, I think it is at least important to understand perspective, because maybe you are that person that you tune into politics every 4 years. This person is, going to be the Democratic nominee, or they're fighting for that nomination, and same thing on the Republican side, right? Politics isn't something that I necessarily talk about, but I think it's still important to at least address. I'm not here to, in essence, tell you what's right or what's wrong. I think that there are so many things and so many nuance to a lot of things. I do find myself to be a lot more in a middle of the road type of guy. But there is a sense of responsibility, at least in myself as a creator, but to at least share things that I, again, consume, things that I see, how I live things. I think how I talk a lot is mainly through experience. And I think things that have gone on throughout this week are basically through experience. There's nothing more. I'm not going to lie. I did not start the podcast recording on the road podcaster. So all of the audio you just heard is, I hope, being picked up from that. I need to stop the recording to make sure. Okay, it is not the Realest Podcast without a few hiccups. The audio was picked up. I know my microphone is on low battery. It is red, so I had to make sure that the audio was being picked up from my camera, because it's the Realest Podcast. Things are going to happen. The first episode, I watched it back with John because there's some exciting news that maybe I'll get to share with him at some point. But I was looking back at the podcast, and I just remember hitting record on the Elgato, and I was thinking that I was going to do this camcorder through my webcam, and it did not work. It did not work. So we had very, very bad glitchy video, and I just said, crap, we're just going to have to make it an audio podcast. However, I hope that one day we get to have John back on the podcast, but there's some exciting news that I'll hopefully share in due time about how John's doing. He was my first ever guest on this podcast. He was a part of the first ever episode on this podcast. And I feel 82 episodes in, this is where it brought us, man. He's right there. He's the middle photo, as you guys might be able to see behind me. However, again, the Realest Podcast is going to have some real moments. I think that's something that I always want to preach. And I guess getting back onto track with this podcast, there are many things that I think everyone has lived through experience, whether that is something that you have heard, whether that's something that you have witnessed, whether those are the things that are around you that shape you, and that's who you are today. This week is no different. I have talked about these things on my main channel before. When I was in high school, we had a school shooting happen nearby in the area here in Spokane, and we got put onto like a mini lockdown. We then did like a few things kind of in support of that school. That it wasn't just like a threat; it was like an actual school shooting. Some kid had a gun. And heroically enough, one of the students that did end up passing away was the guy that actually was this guy's best friend. He tried to stop him. That guy that had the gun that, was intending to do harm to others, the school shooter in this case, he ended up, I don't think intentionally shooting his friend, right? But I think obviously with him in the way of that guy's plans, Samuel, over at a school nearby, he ended up passing away. He was the one that took down the gunman. And you probably hear stories like this very commonly in America. We ended up having a school threat, at least in terms of our student populace. I generally still have no idea. I saw like a Snapchat story, like Snapchat memory of the story that maybe got posted, or like not the story that got posted, but like around the time, when things were occurring, like, oh crap, like today's the day, like are people going to school, are people not going to school, or just things kind of surrounding that. I don't exactly remember what went on in that story, but there was a lot of things going on. I've touched on it in a video. There's always been a conversation, at least since my high school years to even adult years, about things like gun control, things about policy and change, and school shootings being quite a very common thing that happens. You hear statistics, this is the 46th one this year, or mass shooting, or whatever you define, or whatever stat you may have seen. Even Sandy Hook in 2012, like that was probably like the first big one that I remember. Because I was probably in like the 5th or 6th grade when that happened. I guess that's 2012. I was probably in 5th grade. I was 11. Yeah, that seems about right. I was probably in 5th grade, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I was probably beginning maybe that might have been 4th grade even. When that happened and when that occurred over in the New England area. But I was very conflicted as into what do I want to talk about? Do I even talk about this? Do I not? And I think I didn't really know what lens to kind of talk about it in. There was one of my teachers, my senior year. She really put this into perspective, not just from like a conversational standpoint or what like types of topics you talk about, but it was from a lens. And I think it was very important. I don't think it was at the time, but as I've kind of grown, there was
a sense of responsibility to kind of look at things through other lenses. And I think like even in the moment, there's been posts that, more positive posts that I've seen where, it's a bunch of people in traffic and this person just lost his pet dog. This couple just got engaged and this person's 15 minutes late for work and, they slept in. You never really know what anyone's going through. And I think as I've kind of grown up and as I become a content creator and, people look up to me in ways that like, how to guide through life. I don't have like a blueprint. That's not my, it's not something I have, but I can always talk about things through experiences. And as I've lived through more experiences, I have more lenses to look at things. And one of the main things that I was kind of conflicted with is that, and I think part of it has to do almost with the political divide or the political nature that is America. There is a right, there is a left. There, in both points of views, there's probably going to be a right and a wrong. What you think is right is the other party's wrong. And that is kind of what divides us in a way as a nation. And there's a lot of things, especially when it comes to politics, that it's kind of like a fire and you just put gas on it. It's not like you put wood and it's kind of a slow burn. It's a lot of politics and even Instagram comments, I've talked about it on this podcast, where it is a dunked or be dunked on world. You are either going to be slam dunked on and you are going to be shamed for your opinion, or you're going to be doing the shaming. It really is that simple. And I think in nature, that kind of is what political discourse is in America in a lot of ways. There are people, pundits on these various broadcasts that, feel like what they're saying is right, what they believe is the truth. And anyone that opposes that is blatantly wrong. It is a very extremist, opinionistic nature that we live in. There is no middle ground. And even as 2020 was coming through, George Floyd had passed away at the hands of the police, and people are saying, well, man, maybe he died to fentanyl and that was an overdose, or maybe it was the police practices and police brutality at work again. The system needs to change. The definition of insanity is you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. But the thing is that nothing's changed. So how can we expect a different result? And obviously that led into the Black Lives Matter movement and, many people posting in solidarity to it, whether they're going out to a protest. And that even brought nuance of like, wow, well, I thought COVID was such like a big thing. And it seems like people are still doing this in a safe way. And, then some cities are, maybe in a more like a metropolitans. Maybe some of them, like Seattle on the west side, kind of became, they had like a Chad. I think it was either Chaz or Chad. And they had basically like a non-policing zone. And that was respected, right? And there's this one creator that I think he's on the run from the law. And, he has an ankle monitor and he is just on the run. He has free will, right? And there is a sense of, you have free will, like who's to say you can't do something, right? But as a society, we have laws. We have a governing body that overlooks these laws. We have a court of appeals and a court, judges that, define, and juries. We have somewhat of a responsibility as a society to make sure that we move forward. Some people will say that the system is rigged. Some people will say that the system is fair and it's just. And I think generally most people think like the court of law is not generally good. I think it's a good process, but the outcome typically isn't good. There was a recent murder that happened down in Idaho, and in my opinion, this is not me trying to play devil's advocate here. This is my genuine opinion. Brian Kohlberger had murdered 4 students that go to the University of Idaho. That's about 2 hours south of Spokane. That's a pretty close. It's pretty close. So it's pretty hard hitting because a lot of those students lived up here. They lived in Coeur d'Alene. They lived maybe in southern Idaho, right? They lived in the area. he was offered a plea deal. And a part of this plea deal was that he would basically spend, essentially his life in prison. He would rot in concrete walls, and he would basically just live his life there. The unfortunate part about that plea deal is that he did not have to say why he murdered the 4 students. That, to me, is probably the most infuriating thing, that he can basically just get away with the murder, get sent to whatever jail or prison that he's being sent to, live the rest of his life there, and he doesn't have to say a thing. How is it not the other way around? How is it not, if you take this plea deal, you can have your life, but you're going to have to tell the families why you murdered their children? It doesn't make much sense to me that that was the outcome, right? There's a lot of things that have been going on this year that still seem very, not up in the air, but it's heavy. There's a lot of heavy things going on. This week is no different. This thing probably, the event in the assassination of Charlie Kirk probably only fans the flames. It's just, again, a giant bucket of gasoline on a campfire. On one hand, and I guess I'll get into the events, but before I get into that, there was also a school shooting that happened. We obviously saw a few weeks ago with a church shooting. And I don't remember all the timelines of when these events happen, but I would have not been surprised if a few weeks prior that something happened as well. There was a Minneapolis one. There was one in Minnesota. I think those are 2 separate events. The one with the church, the one with the school. You had the one in Colorado this Wednesday. The unfortunate part about Charlie Kirk's assassination on Wednesday and the shooting, the school shooting that happened on Wednesday, is that people who supported Charlie Kirk are probably also the people that want to bring awareness to school shootings and mass shootings in general. I think we can all agree that both of these things should have not happened. I think we should, my opinion, I think that we can agree that both of these things shouldn't have happened. But to what extent, what path did we take to get here? That's, I think, where we have these divides. There's one side that, man, we should have guns to at least protect ourselves. Then there's others that maybe, hey, we should not have guns. Or maybe it's along the lines of, we should, and again, there's probably tiers to this. We should have guns. Everyone should have a gun. Or maybe it's like, hey, we should have guns, but get them legally, go through background checks, go through training. Again, that's maybe a tier down, right? That's not so much of an extreme like, man, my Second Amendment right that allows me to have a gun, right? But then there's the other side being like, oh, we should not have any guns. Or maybe it's like, hey, we should have more gun control. And I think, again, we bring ourselves back to the middle, where there needs to be legislation where people cannot just go to a Cabela's and buy a rifle. They should not, or maybe it's a certain magazine loadout. Maybe they should not have access to rifles. Maybe they should not have access to certain types of guns, right? And again, as you get into more bullet point type things, I think you do get closer to the middle. You just do. And again, with a lot of nuance, and why I brought up even some of the movements, the Black Lives Matter movements, or things that were going on during even COVID, right? Those were also very polarizing things. Some people did not give 2 Fs about COVID. Some people were like, we need to vaccinate every citizen in America, right? And then there's a vaccine debate, right? When there are people that shame you for your silence, there are people who think that if you're just quiet, then you don't really support anything at all. There's a war going on within Ukraine and Russia. There's also a very polarizing war between Israel and Palestine. There is a lot of nuance to these things. It's not just like this person's wrong, this person's right. Because is that not just an extremist way of looking at it? We've seen it even with, why am I hesitating? Charlie Kirk's death. A lot of people came out and be like, man, I don't agree with anything that he said. Anything is even a strong stretch, right? What about if you both believe that pineapple belongs on pizza, right? Like some non-political opinion, right? Mind you, it is a political speaker, right? You probably mean it in that way. That's probably the intention that they mean, right? By any comments. And I think we live in a world where hyper extremism is such a commonplace. It's such a normal in the society that we live in. And I think we all want the best for our people, the people in this country, our neighbors, you know, if we actually care about them. Most importantly, ourselves, our family, right? There's family that have very polarizing opinions, right? Is that indoctrination? Is that just what they ended up believing, right? This is not just an America thing. Mind you, I think ours is a little hyperbolized, but there is a sense of this happens in every country. I'm going to talk about it in this podcast at the very end, but I do want to get into, and I think I just wanted to bring that up because there is a lot of nuance. I'm a person that, man, I think that's a very valid decision. And even if that's a opposite of where most things lie, I still have to respect that that's a thing. It doesn't have to always be exactly that. Because again, as you make a spread on this line and that, you know, however you view it, there is going to be someone very down the middle that also matters. It does not have to be all in. It does not have to be all the other way. There is many people out there. There's an independent party for a reason. There are people that vote for independence, whether that is because they hate both candidates, whether that is because they actually believe that that candidate is the best person. I am someone that every 4 years and basically every 2 years, when there is a general and there is a primary throughout that year, I do my research. I go to Ballotpedia. Sometimes there's not every candidate here in Washington or whatever it may be, at least nationally. There's not everyone's person is filled out on Ballotpedia. But I at least take time. I do my research as a citizen, someone that can vote. Because what one person that represents me, I hope represents me in the best way possible. They may not be the person that gets the most votes, but they're the person that I want in office. And regardless of if they win, regardless of if they lose, that's what I wanted. There always is a sense of, man, never vote for a third party because you're just wasting your vote. You're not wasting your vote. You're voting on the person that you think is best for this country, whether that is at the Senate level, that is the House of the House of Representatives, whether that is the President of the United States. And I think mostly I am preaching to the person that maybe feels that this middle road of political divide is unseen, unheard, unvalidated, because you have to pick a side. It's yin and yang. It's yes or no. That's not always the case. And I hope that you guys feel heard. I hope that you guys feel seen. Because as I've gone through these various lenses of life, hearing this and hearing that, I find myself in the middle. I find myself in no man's land. It's a war between the right and the left, and I'm in no man's land. If you guys don't know what the term is, no man's land is where they build trenches on the outside of a war zone. No man's land is in between those trenches, between Great Britain and the USA. No man's land is the area where, in a way, in a more hypothetical sense, that there's kind of no going back. You're kind of just lost. You're kind of technically wandering, you're all in, in a way, because you either have to retreat back to the trenches or you have to continue to move forward to the other side. So recently this has been a heavy week, just in general, because when people state their opinions, you hope that there isn't any callous nature to it. There isn't any violent tendencies from someone that maybe is a little bit more angry, or there isn't a general action that would harm someone else. On September 10th at around 12 o'clock, Charlie Kirk and his company, he was starting his tour, The American Comeback, and his first stop, a part of this new tour that he was doing, his first in a while, was at Utah Valley University. He arrives that morning, they set up all the things, and people knew about it because you might have saw the videos. There was a lot of people there, and there was protests even the day before that Charlie Kirk should not, be here. You see this all the time. Somebody's speaking at a university and people are protesting because they're allowing that university to platform their ideas that they probably deem as wrong or hateful or violent, whatever it may be. Now, yes, I think there's a nature where the bubble does expand a little bit too much and you are talking in a more hatred and extremist way. But I generally think that most people that do attend these universities, even though they might be on the opposite side of the political spectrum, are typically okay. At 12 o'clock local time, Charlie Kirk is beginning his debates. He goes out, he has a nice little tent, in the shade. It's hot. You're probably sitting out there for a handful of hours. The unfortunate part is that only 20 minutes in, he was asked about gun violence and mass shootings in America. And he was asked a question about, do you know the number of mass shootings that have happened in America in the last X amount of years or months? And Charlie Kirk grabs the mic and he asks, is that including gang violence? And that was the last words that he said. I had seen a post on Instagram that mentioned Charlie Kirk had gotten shot. And the first place you go to is Twitter. You just go to Twitter. You go to X and you go to the trending tab, because I guarantee you, if it's already on an Instagram post from 6 minutes ago, I guarantee you I'm not the first one that heard it. And so I ended up going onto Twitter, and I see that there's about 640,000 posts that involve Charlie Kirk and his name in a post. And at the time, there was just a screenshot of him kind of in this almost like paralyzed state. If somebody had either gotten a concussion, you kind of see them fence because there's kind of a neurological, in a way, malfunction with the body, right? And I'd kind of seen him in this paralyzed state. I had seen a bloodshot, or what it seemed like a gunshot, and blood kind of draped onto this chest area here. And I had seen from a different angle, blood on the side of his neck. And I don't really know how these things are set up. How much security is it hey, this college invited me, I'm going there, or if he's the one, asking these universities to, and I don't know how that security personnel works. And I don't know how close generally people could get to him. The one thing that is kind of crazy and scary, because if you look at someone that probably believes in the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, they probably carry a gun on them. Who is to say that somebody doesn't just grab the gun, shoot that person, or that person grabs their gun and just shoots someone else, right? And regardless of if they can do that, and if they do that, there are repercussions to that action. But the unfortunate part is that someone is injured, someone might be in critical condition, their life might be changed, or they might be dead. That again, you're well, hold up, right? And then you flip the coin, you're here's where we are. I don't exactly remember the time that I had heard about it. I started waking up a little bit earlier than typical, and I was waking up. I probably woke up around 9. They're only an hour ahead of me, though, over there in Utah. And I texted my friend. I was like, hey, did you see that Charlie Kirk got shot? And again, like I didn't know exactly where, because at this point we'd only had a screenshot, kind of flooded the trending tab. And I was like, hey bro, I'm like, did you see this? Like, because I'm like, I at least know where they lie. I at least know what they've watched, or, topics that we've even talked about. Someone like Charlie Kirk was someone that we watched in high school. We're like, hey, we want to learn. Is this a person that we can learn from, right? And at the time, like in high school, you're very impressionable. Like things you believe in high school are probably not the things you believe when you're 24 years old. Your political views change as you live life. You look at the world in a different lens. And Charlie Kirk was somebody that I'm sure everyone, we've seen the outpour that everyone has probably seen either in their memes, whether that is like debunking, whether that is just on their timeline. You probably know who Charlie Kirk is if you care even an ounce about politics. And he was like, I don't remember. I want to actually get this right. So I message him and I'm like, yo, bro, did you see that Charlie Kirk got shot in Orem today? Oh, that's right. Because he lives in Orem. He lives in Orem, Utah. And he's like, yeah, that's my alma mater. And I was like thinking, alma mater as in like Orem, and like I didn't really get what he meant. At that point, then I saw a video of it. And this was like the one probably no more than 50 to 75 feet back, kind of from afar. And it's kind of hard to know what exactly happened. Video is not as clear, right? And he mentioned, he's like, I only have school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, though, so I wasn't there. This happened on a Wednesday. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the one day that you're not there. And I didn't realize that he was talking about the college that he goes to. I didn't know this at this point. And he's been listening to the news and stuff. And, he was saying that he thinks that class is probably going to get canceled. And he sends me a screenshot of some of his Utah Valley University alerts and whatnot. He's talking about how there's a shooter, and then that they disregard that last message, that there's not like an active shooter. It was a simple shot. I say simple like it was nothing, but it was just a singular shot. And so then I put it together. I'm like, oh my gosh, you actually go to UVU. And, he sends me an email from his professor and all of that good stuff, just like keeping me updated. And I'm glad that he wasn't at campus that day. One of my good friends moved down to Utah to kind of cover rent. He's kind of stayed there since then, and he's kind of popped up shop over in Orem and goes to a college out there getting his degree. And just the one day that he's not there. And I didn't realize that like that literally happened at the campus that he goes to. And he was even mentioning to me that he didn't even know that Charlie Kirk was even coming there. And he's someone that like at least stays pretty updated. He doesn't have any social media, but he stays at least updated on like, I'm assuming campus things too. And he generally knows what's kind of going on in the world, like, even if it's a few days after. So like I messaged him, and, I'm going back to Twitter, and I think my heart is heavy. This Charlie Kirk is not a guy that I met. He's not a guy that I know personally. He's a guy that you watch through videos. You could probably pinpoint a lot of people that you may know, that you kind of watch on occasion and you might hear from, or, see videos of. And there's a sense of sadness in a way, because it's not that you build a parasocial relationship, but I think you are kind of sad when someone so young dies. Dwayne Haskins had died. He's a guy that you just watched football. He was a quarterback for the Washington Commanders. He was then a quarterback for the Steelers, and he was training in Florida and got ran over by a garbage truck. He's not a guy that I met. He's just a guy that plays football. and he wasn't like the greatest quarterback, but he had struggled, at times on different teams, and he was just trying to get better, and that's all you ever wanted, was to better himself and better his career and provide for his family. And I could only feel for the family because they hadn't heard from him, and they called down, and they found out that he had got ran over, and you're just like, you're just sad. I've never met the guy. I don't have a personal relationship with him. I'll get to it a little bit later. Rylan Schadegg, someone that I'd actually met, passed away. And I think most importantly, you think about how young they were. Like, in a sadistic way, if you are, a little bit older, in your 70s and your 80s, you've at least lived life to what you hope is the fullest, But at 31, and I think Dwayne Haskins was even 25, I think Rylan was in his mid to late 20s. These are guys that you just watch. If your favorite YouTuber passed away, PewDiePie, someone that you used to watch. I know that even someone like Technoblade in the Minecraft space, he passed away to cancer. And you just you don't know how to react to these things, And I think it's even more amplified because of the nature of what this was. When Sandy Hook happened, it was like the biggest thing. But then there's other things that continue to happen very similarly. And in a way, you kind of become conditioned to see it in the news. There's the one in Texas with the Wendy's worker that decided to shoot up a school in Lubbock, Texas. I think it was Lubbock, Texas. Or Robert, wherever Matthew McConaughey's from. And you just kind of, in a way, you don't know how to feel. I don't have kids. I don't know what it's like to send my kid to school and possibly, get a call and be like, hey, there was a shooting at the school. Or even worse, your kid died. I don't know what that's like. I haven't lived that life, and honestly, I hope I never do. But for this to be in a public setting with the way that it was, a bullet right to the left side of the neck, and the neck is by far the most, probably one of the worst places you could get shot, other than maybe the heart or the head, because you just guzzle blood. A lot of venereal and arteries pump through your neck and into your head, and they supply what you need to continue to live. And it is by far one of the worst places to get shot. It was, when I saw it, and, a lot of people are like, he's in critical condition. I'm like, damn, and with the screenshot with the blood spatter on his, shirt, and I thought he had gotten shot from the side, and, somebody, would have kind of blindsided him. And that's what I thought had happened initially. And I was like, damn, oh, well, he's in critical condition. I don't know what it is, but anyone that I've seen in the past few years that have been in CC have made it out. And you're kind of hoping that that's the case. And then you see a freaking video, traumatizing ass video. Seen videos before that are very traumatizing that probably don't want to see ever again. And this is one of those ones that you're just like, damn. There's a guy that I saw a video. He was the last guy to debate Charlie Kirk, and he was no more than 5 to 10 feet away from him, on a mic, with in front of the main barrier. And he talks about it, and, there's video of it, and right in front of him, probably no further than me to the end of that wall. And you feel for him. Traumatized, probably. I can't speak for him, but it is not a sight that you would want to see again. I can at least say that. And I saw the video. I saw a video from 10, 15 feet away. Probably the closest one that is. And when I saw the blood come out, there was a sense of just like, the GenZ side of me was kind of saying he's cooked, but yeah, I was like, yeah, I genuinely think he's cooked. I don't think that he's surviving that one. And then, the videos of his personal security guards, and they're all carrying him and his arms just dangling, and I think his shirt's off at that point, and that would have been a tough one to come back from. It would have probably taken all of God's might to save anyone in that position. Just the amount of blood loss at that point, it was tremendously in amounts. So all of that to say, you see the video, you see all of that, and you're just like, could this all have been prevented? In a different world, could this all have not happened? And you start seeing other videos, you start seeing speculation, and, apparently they had a suspect in custody, and that was probably one of the first things that I saw. And there's this elderly man, probably in his 50s, and people are berating him, they're throwing things at him, there's this lady screaming at him. And, I am a guy that does believe that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Though someone like even Tyreek Hill, who probably has had a repeat history in terms of domestic violence, yeah, it might be a little tougher each time, but I am one that does believe that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. And, there's a little nuance to that in terms of like, I think OJ did it, but I guess he did get away with it. And even someone like Princess Diana, they're going to rule it was a car crash, but I'm like, nah, man, that was the fucking paparazzi that was the paparazzi's fault. Or, 9/11 even happened the next day, and, all the memes coming out about that, throughout this year. And, as you grow up, you start learning more things, and you're like, you start seeing other videos, and you're like, that's kind of a tough one to kind of believe that, Al-Qaeda decided to just throw some planes into some buildings, and, it seems a little unlikely that it was just them doing it, and especially that there was an entire tower, both towers that just fell down, very similar to a demolition. And as you grow older, you start to believe things that, maybe weren't as apparent at the time. And as there's new angles every single day that keep coming out, you have no idea what to make of it. AI certainly isn't helping with that. So the one thing that I do think, and I bring up 9/11 for this instance, kind of unintentionally, but how this will affect political discourse moving forward, from the left and the right. I hope that it kind of weeds out some of those people that maybe aren't so compassionate. I know from someone that has watched Charlie's content before, he has been very polarizing, very divisive in ways. And you look at someone like Dean, who I've seen a few videos from, and he's popped up on my For You page or on my Instagram Reels, and someone who is also divisive in nature, someone who is very polarizing to the people and people with the same beliefs that he does have. And on both sides, they have the same characteristics, but they have very drastic beliefs. And I could not agree with more what Dean said. I'm someone that continues to see things in the news. You see something on CNN and you're just like, another shooting, and I could care less if this person you're looking for, man, especially in this case for Charlie's death, is this person on the left of, a lot of people are like, is this person on the left? Are they trans? Are they LGBTQ? Things that are very opposite to the right. A lot of people on the right in just sheer numbers. I hate that is something that we immediately look for, because what ends up happening is that if that's all that we look for is the complete opposite person that is by nature trying to harm the other person by nature, it only continues to breed a very hostile environment. And sure, there is hypocrisy on both sides. There is, again, a lot of divisiveness. We're looking for the opposite person to blame. And to whatever extent that these people decide to go about their lives and get a gun and they do harm to others, we just need to treat people like people. Now, yes, if somebody does kill somebody, fuck them. I think that's something that we could all agree about. And I'm sure there's probably people out there that are suffering, that want to end their pain. And if somebody did kill them, but that was what they wanted, is that, where do we view that, right? I just hate that in the world that we live in, where we are looking for someone as not the fall guy, but we're looking at somebody to blame. It has to be the other people, right? It just immediately has to be. There was a trans shooter not long ago. This guy that shot and killed Charlie Kirk, he looks like a guy that's probably on the right. But just what you look like doesn't necessarily mean where your politics lie, right? Doesn't mean that. Somebody could still be gay and they could still be on the right. Somebody could still be trans and they could be on the right. Just because what you look like doesn't necessarily reflect what you believe in. Just because I put a bunch of patriotic stuff doesn't mean I'm American. Doesn't mean, I'm celebrating 4th of July and I'm celebrating every American holiday. Celebrating my freedoms and my rights. Just because I have a Southern accent, just because I look a certain way doesn't mean I believe or act a certain way. And again, there was a few suspects that ended up being, I guess, caught and released, I guess. They got arrested. Then they're like, nah, you're not the guy. You could go about your day. I will say I believe that the guy that they got, Tyler Robinson, is the guy that shot and killed Charlie Kirk. I believe that to be true. I've seen photos that have been kind of circulating. There's a channel that pops up on your Samsung TVs. It's like the Law and Crime channel, the Law and Crime Network. There was a video that they posted that I watched right before this. They basically went through the affidavit that the FBI and the police departments in the county had put out. They basically timestamped everything. They basically went through eyewitness reports. They basically went through people that they had talked to in connection to... Is his name Tyler Robinson? Am I just stupid? Why do I feel like his name is James Robinson? But that sounds like it's from Meet the Robinsons. Let me look up Tyler. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, that is it. Tyler Robinson. I believe that is the guy. There was one Instagram comment section that was like, not like... consistently everyone was like, nah, this is the fall guy. This is like a plant or something. But just seeing the few videos in the affidavit that they shared from his mom's Facebook, he has those same black glasses. And it seems like his dad and his family members were the ones that turned him in. There seem to be somewhat of distinct features within the Converse shoes. Most people don't have a separate pair of shoes that they're probably going to commit a crime in. I think that's just kind of something that they don't think about. Because the one thing is that most people that want to commit murders or want to do crime in people's houses, whatever it may be, typically aren't experienced in that nature. They're not really they're just not experienced. And so it seems like after a few days they caught the guy, and there's a handful of charges that are going to go against him. He was a 22-year-old. There was apparently engravings on the bullet casing, and there's a lot of things to this. There was a lot of people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. There was a lot of people condemning the celebration of Charlie Kirk. There was a lot of people that were also, thoughts and prayers when it was time that he was still alive, in critical condition. And then obviously once he passed, which just thinking about it was probably near instant. He probably suffered for 10 to 30 seconds. I'm not what's the word? Hospital technical term where I study the body crime, how it all happens. Forensic specialist. That's the word. Okay, came to me. I'm not a forensic analyst, a forensic specialist, whatever the proper name is. But just from the looks of it, it did not look good. What I do think, and I guess just thinking about it, a lot of people are like, man, is this the hitman? Is this an assassin? That was another storyline that was trying to go out. And, he got rid of the weapon in a forest nearby and, a whole bunch of timeline things that maybe aren't adding up. And, there was a video that I watched kind of diagramming like the buildings and how far it was. I think it was about 456 feet, which put it a little north of like 150 yards. And my thought process is seeing a little bit of the photo from the affidavit, kind of the guy that he is, maybe the people that he's around. Now, yes, I'm judging it based on the people he's around. It seems a little hypocritical that I would have said, like, just because someone looks a certain way doesn't mean they act a certain way. But there is some archetypes that generally do fill out. I think that he was a hunter. They live in southern Utah. I think he was a hunter. I would have assumed that he probably hunted deer. It looked like the rifle was something that would have been a deer hunting type of rifle, not super like military grade sniper or rifle. And especially at a shot about 150, like I think that's kind of possible with especially a sniper, a high powered sniper. That is, the bullet's going to travel fast. The drop's not going to be as much. And I think he was very skilled at hunting. He probably hunted from a decently young age, would have gotten a lot of experience hunting deer, hunting probably elk, maybe even moose, or just other animals that you could hunt. And especially because he is from a prone position, it's probably a position that he's probably used to. It's how you normally use a sniper. But I generally believe that's kind of the through line there, is that he was a hunter, and he had skill with that type of rifle, though I guess you could kind of point holes that he needed a rifle, and maybe he has his own at home with his family, but he didn't want to take a gun that maybe was in the safe that his parents owned. But man, it is quite the time to be alive. I hope that you guys tell your family, children, siblings, your parents that you love them each and every night. I hope that you get the chance to say good night, and I hope the chance that you get to see them in the morning, because you never know. It is very cliche. You never know when it is going to be their last. You hear about people dying in their sleep all the time. You hear about people just dying in car crashes, plane crashes. We've had plenty of those this year. I think within the nature that Charlie Kirk died definitely is very polarizing for those that are anti-gun. I think what Charlie Kirk stood for a lot of people in America, Gen Z, the youth, very late side millennials, people of conservative value, his death is going to be very polarizing. It's going to be very upright. There's going to be a fallout in a way. There's going to be a lot of uprising. To all the people celebrating any death in any way, I didn't even mention what Dean said. So the whole point why I brought up Dean was that if you want to end gun violence, you cannot celebrate it. And I thought that was very beautifully said, in terms of like, if you want something to end, you literally cannot celebrate it. And so, for instance, if I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head, maybe not so political, but let's say, you want, I don't even know. Yeah, you want wages to go up? I don't know. Maybe you want wages to go up. Then you cannot I don't know. You can't celebrate them going down. I don't know. I don't know. This got to be, I'm really, this is a big brain fart right now. I, yeah, I just thought that was beautifully said by Dean, because there are a lot of people, and I understand there was one guy that posted, he's like, well, he doesn't give a fuck about me as a black man. And to his credit, he probably views it that way. He probably views what many things that Charlie has said on his videos, through short form content, just through his words and what he believes in. I think it's very justified to think that way, because if he didn't give a fuck about me, why would I give a fuck about him? And again, there's a lot of nuance to that. There just is. Because if, let's say, one person says, I hate all Mexicans, I think all Mexicans should die, right? I'm Mexican, so I'm using this as an analogy. And someone said that, right? And let's say that person that said that died, and every Mexican in Mexico and around the world celebrated because that person, wanted me to die, so I could celebrate that he died, because he would have celebrated if I died. I am of the belief that no matter if anyone does hate you, no matter that anyone dislikes you in any way, wants you dead, wants you to have a miserable life, I just hope that everyone has a wonderful life. I really do. We get one opportunity at this, and I hope that everyone out there just gets to live out their dreams, whether that is you come from a struggling, impoverished county, nation, that we just get to have fun and live. We get to get an education. And I hope at the end of it, we get to meet God and we get to be in heaven. And no matter where your beliefs are, I don't think that there's any room for hatred. Yeah, it's a dunked or be dunked on world, and especially the world that we do live in with social media. I could even be better at it at times. And I think most importantly, if anyone wanted me dead, I hope that they find peace, and I hope that they find resolution within themselves. And regardless of how you feel about anything going on this week, I hope that, again, we can find resolution. I think that there's a political nature that has brought in division to us. It's this or it's that. It's right and it's wrong. And whatever you believe in that is opposite of mine, then I hate you, and that you should die, and that I can't talk to you, I can't be friends with you. I just hope that we can find peace within the way that we believe, the things that we value, because I think that is very important to have. And I think my belief system has been challenged, especially because of the way politics here in America has been discussed and the discourse that it's gone through over especially the last 5 years, 6 years, even from the 2016 election, when I was in high school and, learning things about life. Because when you're 12 and you're 13, you're not really learning things. You just want to go homework and you want to play World of Warcraft. Well, that's not really what 12-year-olds are doing these days. That's what I was doing when I was 12 years old. I want to go feed my farms on Farmville. And a lot of people are like, it's a cold world. And I think when you view things in a very negative light, that's all that you're going to see. When you see the beauty within things, you start to see the beauty within it. And you start to see the beauty within everything. And I know that Charlie Kirk and this assassination will stand for something. Will it change over time? And will that mold and almost act as like a clay foundation for people to continue to spread their messages that were probably very similar to his? What I do think that this results in, and as unfortunate as it is, I don't think that there are many things that are going to change. But again, like I said, if you view things in a very negative light, that's all that you're going to see it as. And I guess I kind of say that hoping, but maybe I need to see it in a more positive light, that I believe that there will be change. And it is traumatizing to watch that video. I will say that is, like, I've probably watched it 3 times, and every time, like, my heart aches. And I bring up the Denver shooting because I think the one thing is that you don't see videos of it happening, so it's hard to believe that they're actually true. There's people in Colorado that we've never met that we probably don't really care for that died or are in critical condition. So in a way, it almost kind of means nothing to us. You know, what happened to the person that drowned over in Lake Michigan that we didn't hear about? Or the person over in Turkmenistan that got attacked by a bear. I don't know if they have bears in Turkmenistan, but, you know, they died to a bear. Should I care about them? I don't really know them. I care about them in some level. You know, it hurts to see. I don't know if anyone's died to a bear attack in Turkmenistan, so I might just be chatting shit. But when it is very minute in nature and there's not much connection there, it is very hard to believe and hard to care that it happened. There was a video, and I guess this is what I'll end off on, at least in terms of this. There's a video about the shooting. Oh, this is probably also the one in Minneapolis. Not the church shooting, but the school shooting that it was like a 2-story building. It was like a 2-story elementary school. And I watched the police, and they were trying to, as the body cam of the police first day on the job. You might have heard the story. You might have not seen the video, but you might have heard the story that it was like this guy's first day on the job, and his first call was to the school shooting. And, you know, just recently got accepted into the academy, and it was his first job, and it was his body cam footage, and he had to lead the entire, you know, police unit into the school, and they're going basically room by room, and they're basically, you know, there's students, dead children, blurred out, lifeless, and it hits you when you see it, but when you just hear about it, it doesn't hit as much. I will say that. There is, it's not something that you ever want to see. This is what I'll actually end off on. There was a video that I stumbled upon, and I don't really remember how I stumbled upon it. I was probably 15 at the time, you know, just going through websites or going through whatever it may be. I ended up on this random Vimeo video, or, you know, those random videos, like basically like WikiLeaks. And it was this video of this 13-year-old child that had live streamed themselves hanging themselves. And I don't know why I watched it. I know that I wasn't in a, like, fascinating, like standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like, man, I want to see, you know, I wasn't on some gory shit back then. Like, I was terrified. But, like, there was a sense of me that was sad to, like, see someone take their own life. And it was probably no different than, like, the setting outside of, you know, the little wooden trees. You got a tree out in your backyard, and, you know, they set up their phone on a camera or, you know, a tree, and they had a chair, and they kicked the chair out, and the live stream ended probably after like 40, 50 minutes after their phone died, it seemed like. And the sun was setting, and I fast forwarded it, and I just saw them hanging there. My mom's mentioned stories about, walking in on relatives dying, or, relatives that committed suicide, or things like that. So like, I guess at the time, maybe it wasn't like super jarring to like hear about, or it's definitely jarring to see. But my mom's mentioned things about that, and maybe around that age, or I'm a little older too. And, it is traumatizing. I'm sure we all go through some traumatizing shit. A dog passes away, something that most people probably go through. And, you hope that it's never that traumatizing, and it sucks. I don't know what it means for the future with everything going on. I just hope that I can provide a little bit of lens of what I've seen, what I've heard, my thoughts on it. And I hope that you guys realize that no matter what does go on, I hope that you guys continue to just live healthy and happy lives, no matter where you're at in the world. Shout out my people from Antigua and Bermuda. Always got to shout them out. So all of that to say, I do want to switch topics here. We've been talking for like an hour about things. And again, I don't really know how to transition out of these things. I don't want to seem very insincere about things out of light of Charlie Kirk's death, or the shooting, or just anything that's insensitive. But Apple did release a brand new phone. This was a part of their big surprise event, something that we expect as tech nerds. Every year, Apple always comes out and releases typically a brand new phone or any upgrades in terms of their product line. And so this is including AirPods, iPads, iPhones, most importantly. Obviously, they introduce Apple Watches into their series, and they have some updates. They have some very big updates this year. And Apple 17 is coming out, which is something that we expected. They had a WWDC. Yeah, I think it was WWDC. It's kind of a big tech conference. And Apple came out saying that they're going to be basically updating all of their OS numbers to basically the year. So every year will come with an update, very similar to a phone. And all that to say, iPhone 17 is coming out. They have a now new iPhone Air. It's a thinner design. It's a new Air model. It's a brighter, smoother display. It's very thin. It's about 5 millimeters thick at basically its whole waist. And of course, the camera kind of thickens out. Apparently it comes, and apparently all of the new iPhone 17s come with a tougher glass on the back half. And it also comes with a better low light camera, which is something that even my Canon camera struggles with. So like, what's going on there? Of course, iPhone 17 always going to get a huge uproar. I really like my phone because it just sections out everything. Like, I really like that. Whereas one of the problems with my phone is that it wobbles. It wobbles. It's kind of like an uneven chair. So what basically iPhone and Apple did was they basically created this island on the back half that has the cameras and it has all the lights and microphones. So basically when you set it down, there's no wobble because it's even. So, but the one thing is if I just get a case, like my problem's fine, which like really isn't too big of a deal. So, yeah, iPhone 17 is now available, or at least maybe soon to be available. I think that maybe they come out this Friday, September 19th of 2025, but very big lineup there. Apple Watch, they now have a Series 11. They added a new feature called the hypertension alert. So basically they track your blood pressure and your basically your heartbeat over a course of 30 days. And they let you know if you maybe have hypertension, maybe to seek medical advice with a doctor. Sleep scores, which is really nice, but I think that's kind of out of date because most people probably have something similar to it, whether it's already within their phone, or like I had a Whoop for a really long time. This also tells me my sleep score. It tells me more about my sleep battery, or my body battery, which is kind of like my sleep score in that sense. But then on top of that, again, with a stronger glass, the hardest glass in Apple Watch history and a bigger battery life. That also is something with the Apple Watch Ultra 3 that they now have, which now, again, has a bigger and better battery. It also has better satellite connectivity, which, again, you're going to need because for Ultra, it's more of like a running type of watch. And a larger and rugged display, which now has multiple different designs for it, which is really nice. The Apple Watch SE has a budget model now, which is really nice. And it has a now with always on-screen display, faster chip, and of course, sleep and health tracking upgrades. These are some things that are going on with Apple. Let's not also forget the Apple Watch Pro and, of course, iOS 26, which I mentioned earlier, with the liquid glass transition, which is the new look that they're kind of going for, which I've reacted to a video. I absolutely freaking hate it. The new smarter AI features with AI intelligence or Apple Intelligence, which is basically AI. But Apple AirPod Pros 3s now come with a better noise canceling feature and live translation, which I think is honestly great. They have like a thing you can connect to with your phone, which obviously that's how you make AirPods work, but you can have like a display and you could talk to somebody who speaks a different language, and then basically they can read it in their language while you hear it in yours, and then basically what you say is then translated into their language when you respond or they respond. So that, I think that's a really cool feature, to be honest. Like, that is genuinely a really, really cool feature. Like, I fucking love that feature, to be honest. So yeah, Apple coming out with some new products, coming out with some upgrades. The unfortunate part is that Apple also lost $100 million in valuation out of their stock after their announcement. So Tim might actually be cooked. I would not be surprised if he actually steps down as CEO of Apple within the next few years, just because Apple has kind of taken a backseat to Samsung. They've made upgrades that have seemed kind of out of date in a way. Like, they're not the hype anymore. The hype was like AirPods, like, oh my gosh, like Bluetooth earbuds, and like now everyone has them for the most part. But then you're talking about like Apple Watch, like watches. They want to get into the watch space, and the like most people have like a Fitbit, most people have like a Garmin. I have a Garmin. But if anyone wants to get into that ecospace, at least they have that. iPads were still pretty big, but then tablets and iPads kind of went out. And even the calculator app finally is available on iPad. Instagram is now available on iPad. It's 2025, guys. So all of that to say, it is not it's not a great time to be an Apple employee or anyone in an executive level. Starbucks is coming out with a brand new, what would you call it? They're coming out with a brand new drink starting September 29th. Starbucks is now adding to their lineup a protein drink. Yeah, they're following that craze. They're absolutely following that craze. So at a small, Grande, Venti, Tall, I don't know which one each of them are. I think Grande is the smallest. But basically, out of their sizing, it's 15 to 36 grams of protein, depending on how much, of their protein milk that they're adding into these drinks. And that's 15 to 36 grams per serving, depending on, again, how tall your drink is. That's starting September 29th. And I'm not going to lie, I know a lot of companies have been following the protein hype, the protein trend. Protein is great for you. If you're wanting to build muscle, if you're wanting to lose weight, if you are wanting to just repair things that you need to repair within your body, protein is fantastic, whether that is through meat, whether it's through whey protein. These amino acids, if you learn about proteins in biology or just basic science, these amino acids, there are a lot of different types of amino acids, and there's only maybe about 5, 6, 7 of them that actually are really good for you. That might actually be a long list, but I know whey protein. I don't know if whey protein isolate is good for you because it's isolate. Maybe it's from concentrate, but I guarantee you the protein that they're using in their protein milk for these Starbucks protein drinks are not going to be a good protein. Not every protein is built the same. Every single protein is built different. There are good ones out there. There are ones that are not so good for you and are just like wishy-washy. If you see coconut milk from concentrate, it's not like coconut milk. It's not like, oh my goodness, we put coconut in our drinks. Prime, I'm looking at you. It's not exactly what that is Like, oh my goodness, we now have coconut water in our drinks. Yeah, like very, very little. It's not even like real coconut water at that point because it comes from concentrate. So all that to say, I don't think it's going to be an actual protein. Like people are just going to buy the hype. They're going to get millions of dollars because of it, because people want to get their protein in. That's not how that works. So I hope that it's good for them. They're probably going to get a lot of money from it. But so are millions of other companies out there. Not millions, but there's a lot of other companies just selling shit as protein. When it is protein, but it's just not the good ones. And the Nepal riots, there's been stuff going on in Nepal because of there's been violent anti-corruption protests going on in Nepal, which if you guys don't know where Nepal is, that's kind of where Mount Everest is at, which is kind of crazy. But Nepal is going through violent anti-corruption protests, Gen Z led, by the way. So people like my age in their 20s, late 20s, and even into their teens, they are rioting because of the corrupt government. The government that's basically been in power since 2008 has, one, seen little progression. Two, there's been a high percentage in unemployment. There's also been what has been called basically the Nepo child of the world, where a lot of their children, the government officials, children have lived these very lavish lives, going out on yachts, flying private, right? While most of the people in Nepal struggle, we probably view Nepal as like basically a third world country. I mean, yeah, they might be thriving, but they're going through a lot of struggle right now. So all of that to say, they've been going through that. They just elected their new prime minister, Shashil S. Patir, I believe is her name. Shashil S. Patir. She was nominated because of a Discord vote. 140,000 members were a part of the server, and they voted. Through a few days, they voted for their new prime minister on a Discord vote. I cannot believe that. Pretty crazy. There's a lot of corruption going on in Nepal, and I hope that this is kind of the turning point, because they banned all social media, which obviously limited a lot of communication, and that was kind of the snowballing effect that then led to a lot of these things. And yeah, it's pretty rough to say that happened, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad it happened. I am glad. Hearing about the things that former prime minister and his cabinet and his administration was doing, it's not so great. So you know what? I'm happy for I think it's Nepalese. Are they Nepalese people? It kind of sounds weird to kind of say, because it kind of sounds like epilepsy and Nepalese. It's probably Nepalese. The people over in Nepal, I'm glad that they're sticking up for what they believe in. Because it's been 2008. It's not like 2 years worth of corruption. It's been like a decade and a half of corruption. The unfortunate part, I mentioned it earlier, Rylan Schadegg, someone that I've actually met. He invited me to a Bible study after one of his events. I was working an event down in Texas, down in Austin, Austin, Texas, down over the fairgrounds there. No, down in Dallas. My bad. Down in Dallas. And why do I say I've been to Austin? I've never been to Austin. Why do I always think everything's in Austin? It's where I want to live, but I don't. I say it like I've been there. I've been to Fort Worth and I've been to Dallas. That's the only two places in Texas I've been. So all of that to say, Rylan Schadegg, he passed away this last Sunday. He was a guy of great faith. He's one of the athletes in the OCR, the obstacle course racing space, that I really looked up to. He's not too much older than I am. He's maybe 26, 27, and he might even be 25 now I'm thinking about it. But he was one of those guys that, top of his class, always wanted the best, wanted to compete at the highest level that he could every single time he was out there racing. Yeah, sure, a little controversy with some chalk. Like, who the fuck cares, right? But the unfortunate part is I opened up Instagram on Thursday, and I saw a post from his family that says that he passed. And this one hits a little bit harder just because I had met him, and he was somebody that I looked up to as an employee in the space, someone that I always wanted to, it inspired me to be a better man. just because he always worked so hard. If there was an obstacle in his way, he would do whatever it took to get over it, through it, around it, under it, whatever it is. He tried his hardest to be out there, even in the high rock space. And he was a man of great faith. Like I mentioned, he invited me to a Bible study after his race. And I just wanted to just say hi and just say I'm a big fan of his. And it hurts. Because, I got to meet him in December of 2023, and that was, unfortunately, the last time I ever got to see him. I hope that my work obviously got me around those spaces a little bit more, where I got to see him or got to see him compete, or, hopefully one day got to compete against him. And unfortunately, that time has passed. But his family did say that he was doing what he loved, climbing mountains and, flying down them as fast as he could. He loved, from what it seems like, skydiving, or grabbing a parachute and running off a mountain. But he was a man of great adventure, it seems like, just from his Instagram. I say this like I know him personally, but I was a big fan of his, as somebody in this space who, not too much younger than he was. And, he was paving the way for a lot of great things to come in this, in that space. And, I hope that, his legacy is, never forgotten, because, he deserves it. It really hurts because he's kind of one of the first people in that space, to pass. And, that one hurt. It is always the first one that hurts. The first breakup hurts. And it hurts. It hurts a lot just to know that, like, we're not gonna get like a training tutorial ever again, or we're not gonna get we're just not gonna get to see him anymore. Racing. I feel for those that got to race with him, got to compete with him. Got to know him on a personal level, whether that is religiously or whether that is from just competing and friends and family. But this one hurt a lot. So there was a lot of things going on this week, that have definitely carried a heavy heart, with me. It was a little difficult to stream, this week, just knowing some of the events that have occurred. My sister's telling me that she's watching a Nardwuar video with the Sabrina Carpenter. The Sabrina Carpenter versus Nardwuar. Nardwuar! Doot, 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 doot. Nardwuar! Nardwuar! Yeah, I watched the Sabrina Carpenter video with Nardwuar. That's a really fun one. Yeah, that's funny. Man, it's been a long podcast episode. Last thing I want to mention, because last week I was talking about the NFL and it being back, all of my predictions, the teams that I think are going to freaking suck, and the teams that I think are going to be really good. We had some amazing matchups. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to talk about some of my favorites. I loved that Ravens-Bills game. That was a magnificent game. I absolutely loved that. I got to watch and do a watch party for the Raiders versus the Patriots, which I absolutely loved. The Raiders got a dub, baby. That 10-7 record is freaking ours, baby. Come on now. Just win, baby. Come on. So with that, those are some of my favorite games of last week. Even the YouTube one that happened, the Chiefs and the Chargers one, was amazing. They had Destroying on there. They had Cam Newton and Kay Adams, which I absolutely love hearing from those guys, especially just because it was like a YouTube stream and they were down in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And that was really cool. It was really fun for YouTube to kind of get involved and do a free live stream for the masses. I don't know how many people tuned in, but man, it must have been a lot. I will say that. So all of that to say, my predictions, I think most of them are holding up. I don't exactly know how it looked week one. Maybe next week we'll come back and I'll give you guys a little update on that. On like, oh man, like I'm like 27-5, or like I'm 5-27. I really suck at picking these picks because I think I had the Packers losing last week. I had them losing this week or maybe winning this week, and they won both of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for my friend. And it is very dark outside. I don't know why I mentioned that, but this has been The Realest Podcast, episode 82. Banner is right behind me. I hope that you guys did enjoy this episode. It's been a little heavy-hearted. Hope you guys got to hear some things from my lens, and hopefully you guys picked up a thing or two moving forward in terms of how you view things, how you live life, and most importantly, just how we treat people. But all of that to say, thank you guys again so much for watching today's episode of The Realest Podcast. Shout out to all my people in Antigua and Bermuda. I love you guys. But I love each and every one of you guys. If you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe onto the YouTube channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So with that said, I will see you guys in the next one. 07 and peace. Peace!